Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're going to do some brief technical analysis on Chainlink to see what I'm looking at in terms of this data and what we might be expecting as we go into next week. If you find this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not subscribe? Tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with that said, done and out of the way, let's dive down into Chainlink's technical analysis here to see what's going on with the price action of Link. We're going to start things off with this weekly chart, guys. Just talk about the structure overall of what we're seeing here in terms of the bigger picture. We can see that basically from the crash of March 2020, we actually have seen 3,838% in gains before we actually topped up with the big correction around that kind of May, April time for Bitcoin, right? And when Bitcoin pulled down, pretty much most of the altcoins, including Chainlink here, had a correction. We found ourselves in a bit of an accumulation period just at the bottom here during this correction wave, and then we started to see a good push back to the upside. Now, obviously, this yellow box area here, we'll get into that in a moment, and that is obviously a critical area for Chainlink that we're looking to overtake. Now, we are seeing about 549% in gains from our current position to where we think the bull run is likely to end here for Chainlink. So overall, there is still some gains to be had on the table. Although it can be frustrating when we are seeing these pullbacks, they are incredibly natural within the space. Some clear examples of this is a pullback that we had in the middle here for Chainlink, and then the progress that happened after. We can also see that basically there was also a pretty significant correction over here and here before we even topped out. So seeing corrections like this is not unusual for the crypto space. It's highly volatile because it's a very small market. But to see 3,838% in gains, it's definitely something you want to consider because a bank isn't going to offer you that in 1 year. This actually occurred in just 427 days, so a little over a year, and you would have seen very significant gains on your investment. With that being said, though, there are obviously a time and a place to be investing. I am not a financial advisor, nor is Chris on the channel, so it's important that you do your own research. We really like Chainlink because it really does help bring that real-world data on-chain in an immutable way. It is something that is absolutely vital for DeFi, and a project like this is something that you see integrated with so many other projects in the space. It's been around for a while, but that being said, there are some competition for it. We obviously do have the band protocol, and of course one of my personal favorites, which is API3. Ultimately, the Chainlink does definitely seem to be king at the moment and has performed well so far. Even though there's a pullback here, we are still expecting pretty good things. From the structure of things, we do not have the 5 impulse waves like we would have for many of these other coins. For example, if I actually go grab those Elliott theory impulse waves, we can see that wave 1 would have been a very significant push, wave 2 would have taken us down low, 3 high, 4 and then 5 in theory. The problem that you have here is that wave 4 crossed wave 1 and therefore is invalid. So it is not something that we are likely to see. The other scenario is, of course, that we actually take that Elliott theory off completely, and because it is invalid, and we actually look at a deeper time period. The problem here is you do not know the history as to where things were prior, but you could argue that this was wave 1, this was wave 2, this was wave 3, we come down to wave 4, and then this here was wave 5 for Chainlink. It's also something very possible, so it's important that we acknowledge that this scenario is something that could have also occurred here for Chainlink, starting much earlier than the rest of the crypto space. And if that is the result of what we see here, then actually we would not be expecting to push up from here. Instead, we'd have an ABC correction. And if we do see an ABC correction here for Chainlink, then actually what we'd end up with is A, B, and then a decline probably down to about this area here for C. Okay, so if that is the scenario, that would be a very, very good kind of intel to accumulation right the way down at the bottom here. But I'm not sure that this is something that we are likely to see, considering the space is heating up very well. And for most altcoins, everything started here, and Chainlink should have started at the same point, but not all coins are following the same pattern, and that's quite clear to see with Chainlink. So overall, I still think Chainlink is in a very good position, and anyone who was watching my 5 altcoins to 5x will know that Chainlink was the first choice. I do think this is going to 5x from its current position, meaning that we are likely to see a pretty good push to the upside and that 549% in gains. Now on this weekly chart, we can see that we're overbought. Again, this is perfectly fine. We can be up here for a couple of months before we see the decline back to the downside. Overall, this is an area that we have been in previously for quite some time, although there are some volatile spots here with Chainlink that we do have to consider. So right now, we'll obviously have to dive into the smaller time frames to know where things are going next. So what we're going to do is jump down into our daily. Now here we're just going to expand this up a little bit and zoom in, and then actually just bring this in to see the current action, right? So we can obviously take a look at the current performance here for Chainlink. So what we do have is a nice push to the upside here, and this actually topped out before Bitcoin had a major pullback to the downside. This came in at $53.21. Here we actually saw a nice pullback, and we actually came down to a nice low area for accumulation at $13.32. In fact, I had marked this area here up because this is an area that we're wicking into, but not really getting closed candles. We did fall into it slightly deeper, found the bottom, and then we came right out with this V-top. So ultimately, this V-bottom here is really interesting. It did see this good recovery, pushing through some of the resistance that we had seen previously. Overall, everything here was working quite nicely up until recently when Bitcoin had another pullback. This obviously affected Chainlink quite well and pulled us into another accumulation period at the bottom here, where we're now starting to move back to the recovery to the upside. Overall, if we take a look, we are setting these higher lows on this direction. So if that continues, we should be looking to push up into this yellow box area here. This yellow box area, guys, is our 618, 702 and 786 of the Fibonacci. Getting the closed candle above here, preferably weekly, is a big bull flag that should see us go to the next level. And again, that then goes into price discovery. And when I'm talking about price discovery, Chainlink obviously has some interesting levels. According to the current performance of the high and the low, that's where the Fibonacci is put on. Here we have the 1.618 coming in at $77.85. The 2.618 comes in at $117.72. The 3.618 comes in at $157.59. And then we should top out with the full 4.236 extension of $182.23. So overall, Chainlink has a lot of potential in the very near future, but first we need to see some of this resistance get left behind. So right now, being oversold on our daily, this is actually a pretty good position to see some growth in the future. An example of this is being down oversold over here, and then having this amount of correction to the upside during our overbought area. We started to see this waver a little bit with a nice push to the upside over here before Bitcoin decided to bring it right down to the oversold area. So right now the stochastic has lots of potential to grow, but we have to be aware that the sentiment isn't necessarily where it needs to be. And this is actually an interesting tell as well. The volumes have been dropping as we've been decreasing the price. This actually helps protect the price whilst allowing the stochastic to grow and basically push down to the oversold area. So right now, we were looking for is to keep the volume low whilst we continue a correction here, and look to grow that volume once the candles are ready to move back to the upside. Growing the volume in line with growing the candles will allow us to get into the 618, 702, 786. And here we'll expect a bit of a battle. This could be up here for a while whilst we work out how to get this closed candle above. Once we get closed above that position, there's very little stopping it between the 718 and the 786 and of course the previous all-time high. So from there, it's just a small hop and a step really up to the upper side. And obviously we are expecting Bitcoin to move along with it. Bitcoin will be leading the pack ultimately. So Bitcoin will be the one surging up with some interesting price expectations for Bitcoin in the next few weeks. So overall, everything's looking pretty good on our daily. Let's jump down into our hourly and see what we could be expecting to see happen next. Right now on the immediate time frames, we can see there's a bit of a decline. Again, this is backed up by that stochastic falling down to these lower areas. So again, we should be looking to find an interesting area of support. We're going to lose this one, which we are literally losing it right now at 27.81.83, and we'll lose this support here. And what we'll look to do is actually come down to a sensible area. So the first area that we want to look for is 27.37, but I think that's a bit too shallow. We want to go down to about 26.71, and if that doesn't hold, then ultimately we'll be down at 26.22. And once we cut down to these lower areas, this is where you'll be oversold on your stochastic. So we'll look to pull this down and then move right back up again. But again, we have to be mindful of these downward trends and upward trends as they form. So what we mean by this is there's a downward trend here. We can quite clearly see that there's a downward trend. Obviously, trend lines are not the best things to be using, but they give us a bit of an intel. Here we can obviously see that there is these two areas here, and again, when we actually draw these two things together, this could actually help us find support around here as we come down. This would allow us to potentially find support at around that $26 range. Okay, so just in here, rather than going all the way down to 26.22, it could be the higher end, okay, just short of the $27, for example. So if that trend line holds well for us and we actually end up seeing this triangular wedge form and actually come to a bit of a close, we could potentially come down here, band a bounce, and actually have a break from the downward trend altogether. Ultimately, we were looking to continue to set these lower highs, higher lows, I should say, overall. And once we start seeing that, we then should hopefully start to see that break to the upside. Again, I want to reiterate that these are small time frame movements and ultimately not a part of the bigger structure and the bigger picture. This is going to be where you see the majority of your volatility, and you're able to basically trade between key areas. This is where day traders will spend a lot of time, hours on the hourly chart, the 30-minute chart, the 15-minute chart, the 5-minute chart, right? But as a long-term investor, i.e. thinking where the bull run is ending as a retail investor, we really want to focus in on what goes on with our daily chart. Make sure that that's aligning to everything that we're looking for. And of course, making sure that our weekly is very much intact with our expectations as well. And for us, the daily and the weekly are our friends. And it's always important that if we are looking to buy, that we do check that hourly. And if we want to be prepared for any kind of major pullbacks that might be on the horizon, then the hourly is going to help you identify those scenarios. But ultimately, as a long-term investor, thinking about where the bull run is ending, for me, I always like to make sure I zoom out if I'm ever in doubt, pay attention to the daily, pay attention to the weekly, and obviously just look at the hourly to get you an idea and a flavor. But ultimately, keep our emotions in check by making sure we zoom out and see where the bigger picture is actually going and not acting emotionally on those smaller moves. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. Our expectations are that Chainlink is going to pull down on the small time frames, but we are looking to move up longer term. Guys, hopefully you have found this video useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you are new, why not subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.